So welcome to this research and practice event held on the 5th of May 2021. Today's speaker is Tica Hessing, who joins us from Cushman and Wakefield in Melbourne, where she holds the position of Human Geographer and Workplace Strategy Manager. Born and educated in the Netherlands, Tica came to Australia 5 years ago with Cushman and Wakefield. Prior to that, she studied a bachelor's degree in human geography and urban planning. Over the last 5 years, Tica has co-authored many publications. She has presented at over 70 industry events, and she's been interviewed by various television and networks and newspapers, including the ABC, BBC, and the Australian Financial Review. Most recently, Tica has been at the forefront of the transformation of workplaces in response to the COVID pandemic. Now, recently, Cushman and Wakefield undertook a study called the Experience per Square Foot Survey. You may have heard of it. They had an enviable 60,000 respondents. Today, Tica will share the data from that survey and how her work transforms the findings into workplace strategy. The title of Tica's presentation is Future Ways of Working. After the presentation, you have an opportunity to ask Tica questions about her work. Over to you, Tica.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for your introduction. And thank you so much for having me on your beautiful, it's not a podcast, a webinar. And I'm so glad that it's actually an interactive session. We were speaking about this just before we all came online, that, you know, often throughout the COVID days, you're doing presentations, but you actually can't see anyone or you won't have any feedback. And it's lovely to having you all online. And I look forward to the discussion afterwards. So I will probably be speaking for about 20 or 30 minutes. I will share the survey results, as Jacqueline mentioned. And after that, please, share your insights or any questions. Looking forward to diving deeper into the insights and workplace trends. So I'm actually going to show two types of survey results today. So one of the surveys that we've done was the Experience per Square Foot survey with 60,000 respondents. And we have another survey that is even more recent, which we have done in collaboration with CoreNet Global. There we had 2,000 respondents, so relatively not that much, but I think 2,000 is still quite a good size. And that survey, so the experience survey is more human focused, whilst the CoreNet survey, the 2,000 group survey, is more focused around workplace design. So throughout the session, I will talk to both. So I've sectioned it into three parts: so the changing nature of the workplace, then work location and key business outcomes, and then knowing the who, why, and where is the last section. All right, hopes. So very briefly about the changing nature of the workplace, and I will touch on it, very briefly. So the purpose of the office historically was mainly 4 points. It was a center for command and control. It was a place where you could access capital that you wouldn't have at home, like large computers and other equipment. A place for productivity, innovation, and knowledge, and then also for social and cultural aspects. But throughout COVID, and even before that, we already saw the move to more flexible ways of working. And what is the impact on that historical purpose of the office? Well, we mainly focus when we are hearing conversations nowadays is that, the new purpose of the office is really around that product, the innovation and the social and cultural aspects. That is where a lot of conversations are about. And we are not so much talking about that it is no longer as much a center for command and control. So managers don't need to have line of sight anymore. But I actually think that that point is really important because even though we think, we can work flexibly, there is still a big shift needed in how we manage people remotely. How do we manage a distributed workforce effectively? And even though we had a year of experience, I still think that there are some big changes needed to do it in the right way. And then, of course, the capital needs. So I think that is quite clear that most of us don't have to go to the office to access equipment. I was talking to a company the other day. They create the sounds for videos and movies, and even they have managed to have some of that equipment at home to create those sound effects. So I think we've become quite nimble in that regard. So this is one of the first survey results that I will show, and this is with CoreNet Global and the 2000 respondents. So the sources here at the bottom for your reference. We asked organizations, how do you actually look at the workplace and how has that changed from pre-COVID-19? Well, pre-COVID-19, a lot of businesses saw the workplace and the workplace strategy as an office first type of strategy. So not really taking into consideration working remotely or working in a hybrid way. So 59% of respondents said that pre-COVID-19, it was really an office first point of view. But now we asked, what do you think that view will be post-COVID-19? And that the large part of respondents said that they would actually have a hybrid way, a hybrid view when it comes to workplace. So taking into consideration work in the office, but also work from second, third places and home. So just to explain it, the light blue color is office first, gray is office first hybrid, and red is remote first hybrid, and blue is remote first. So the hybrid point of view pre-COVID was 29%, whilst post-COVID that is 81%. So it's really big shift there. And that shift slightly, it's slight differences in regions. We also asked them to describe the workplace and the different aspects of the workplace. Do you think, we asked about different aspects and asked the respondents, does it describe the workplace? Does it somewhat describe the workplace, or does it not describe the workplace? We asked that pre-COVID-19 and also in a post-COVID-19 world. So and some of the interesting insights, I think, is that pre-COVID-19, 64% of respondents said that assigned seating describes the workplace, but post-COVID, it was only 28%. So a lot more people think that, we will be working in a more flexible type of way within the workplace, as well as, flexible working as in where you will work. So desk sharing. With desk sharing, I think it's interesting because you have, usually pre-COVID or historically, you would have one person per one desk. Now with flexible working, a lot of people say, okay, you can come in and you can sit wherever you want. You may use someone else's desk, but it's still a one-on-one ratio. And then you can go 1 point further, which is actually saying, okay, you can sit wherever you want, but we don't have enough seats anymore in the workplace for everyone. So it's sharing desks when you're in the office. So when you go into the office, you don't have the desk for the day, but you actually need to clean your desk whenever you are going to a meeting, so that even more people can be based in the office at a more efficient rate, which is, I think, more for the organizations that are already advanced in activity-based working. Changes in space layout. So these are the same type of responses, just shown in a maybe a easier way to compare pre and post pandemic. So mostly assigned seating was a big difference there. Then mostly virtual collaboration. Pre-pandemic, only a small percentage of people said that that would describe the workplace, but post-pandemic, 28% of respondents said that a mostly virtual collaboration would describe the workplace. I think it's important when we are creating workplaces, yes, to look at how can we enable hybrid meetings. So when some people are joining online and some people are joining offline, or sorry, some people are joining in person and other people are joining online. I think now that we are in this Zoom meeting, a lot of us are just one-to-one kind of, you look at the screen, but if you are the only person that is zooming in from home and the rest of your team is in the office, how can we still make that a intimate meeting? How can we still make sure that that person that is zooming in from home feels included? We'll need to look at the setup of the meeting room, but also the acoustics, perhaps lights. Often our meeting rooms are beautifully or sometimes, not often, positioned by a large window, but then you can only see silhouettes. So how can we make sure it's also the right lighting so that you can actually see people's faces and expressions well? So that is one part. So that is the virtual collaboration. But I think we also need to take into consideration individual spaces that enable that the virtual interaction. So at the moment, what I'm witnessing is that a lot of people are joining their Zoom calls once they are in the open office plan, because there is just no easy access to meeting rooms to join online, for example, or they don't want to take up a large meeting room to just have a virtual conversation with someone on the other end. So I think phone booths or virtual booths that you can easily log into and that there is a screen in front of you would also work in the future workplace. Then we did research into, and this was with the George Washington University, about, okay, so what is the impact of remote work on our experience of the workplace and on our business and on business outcomes? And we looked at 4 different things. So we looked at the impact of remote work on productivity and output, on innovation and creativity, on company culture, and on the employee satisfaction. I'll quickly look at those insights. So first of all, around productivity, there were actually a couple of studies done way back in 2003 and 2010, before COVID hit, about remote work, and those had positive outcomes. So the Cisco study, for example, they introduced flexible work arrangements and increased productivity by 195 million. So there are positives, but I think, whenever we look at these trends and research outcomes, we really need to take into consideration that it can be different for each business. We need to understand the business that we work for, or that the businesses that our clients are in, and what would be the impact on those employees. So as is mentioned here, the impacts of remote work on productivity vary greatly depending on employee personality, role, and job complexity. We've got some insights as well later on, based on the survey results, that also show that. Then innovation and creativity. In one of the surveys that was conducted by a creative firm called Mural, the organization reported that 47% of their workers reported that the quality of their creative design work was worse when working remotely, but 15% of workers thought that their work was better outside of the office. So here again, maybe the majority thinks it's better to be creative when working remotely, but if there is still a 50% that thinks otherwise, choice will be then the best option so that people can choose what works best for them, and then you will have a win-win outcome. How many? Oh, the time flies. I may just quickly skip through this, and I'm happy to share the slides because I actually want to go to the survey results with the 60,000 respondents, and I see it's 17 past 12 already. So here we go. We did this in the beginning of the pandemic, and we also did the survey again 6 months later. So the insights on this slide are the first insights, and then I will show you on the next slide what the comparison is 6 months later. So the insights were that most of the respondents said that, okay, we are still working. So 75% said that they felt effective. They felt that they could effectively focus and collaborate when working from home. But personal connections and learning were suffering. So 50% of people struggled to connect to the company culture when we're working remotely in the beginning of the pandemic. And people really didn't feel well. So only 54% had a sense of well-being. And the younger generation struggled the most. 70% of the younger generation mentioned that they had working from home challenges. And I think we all know, the reasons why that can be, depending on sharing an apartment, for example, or just starting out a new career and finding it hard to understand work practices or working in a professional environment and not having direct access to managers and peers. But despite all of that, 78% said that they want remote working policies expanded and keep working flexibly going forward. Now let's have a look 6 months later. These are some of the outcomes 6 months later. And on the left-hand side, you see the things that improved. And on the right-hand side are the things that decreased. And the things that improved by 1 digit. But the things that decreased, even further decreased by double digits. So I think that already shows a story. What are the things that improved 6 months later working from home? Well, 4% more people said that they wanted to see those expanded working from home policies. So being able to work flexibly. 7% improvement or an increase in people feeling that they are doing their best work, and a 5% reduction reporting challenges in working from home. So it sounds like, 6 months later, we feel like, we make working from home work. We've set up shop at home, and we are feeling like we are doing our work well. We have less challenges overall, but if you dive deeper, there was a further 18% drop in feeling connected to company culture, a further 20% decrease in the ability to bond with colleagues, and a further 10% drop in learning. I think that all the 3 points on the right-hand side, if this is only after 6 months of working from home 5 days a week, what would it be after a year? How can we make sure that those don't drop further? Does it mean that people have to come back to the workplace a couple of days a week? Or maybe it means that we need to come up with strategies to engage people whilst working remotely. And I think co-creation is going to be really important. And what I mean by co-creation is when thinking about the strategies or the ways of working going forward for a company, making sure that staff is involved. So if you have a manager of, let's say, a team of 20 people, skilling up that manager to have a conversation with those 20 people to craft, brainstorm ideas about, okay, how will our team work best going forward, taking into consideration the business goals, but also the individual preferences and the team interactions. So understanding how do we interact, when do we interact, what platforms do we use, what are the days that we do want to be in the office and what would be the benefits for that. And working with our clients, so I create workplace strategies for businesses. I often find that managers haven't always had those type of conversations. They usually, set the scene and it's like, this is how we work. And, you just come to the office and you may have one day off or one day working from home. That was the way of working pre-COVID-19. But now they'll need to be open to get input from their team and do something with that. And a lot of managers are anxious because they think, maybe their team comes up with ideas that they don't feel comfortable with, or they may not be having empathy or listening to some of the struggles. That is not for everyone, perhaps. So I think that upskilling managers and understanding that that can be a difficult task for them is going to be important when crafting those new ways of working. A tailored approach is required. So also from the survey, we see that we asked the participants rank what do you anticipate influences your company's decisions about the work mode and how flexible you can work. The employee role was number one response, then employee preference, then employee safety. And these are the same results, but then categorized in regions. It's interesting because employee preference, the gray bar, is lower. In APAC, it's like the third priority, whilst in EMEA, for example, is the first priority employee preference. And I think in APAC that may reflect mostly the Asian companies where hierarchy and is more prevalent, and where activity-based working or flexible working people just haven't experienced that as much as perhaps in the Western companies or countries. Just going to go to this slide. I'm almost at the end. This is a probability analysis. So what we've done is we looked at, okay, let's say a company is going to implement work from home policy and says that people on average can work from home 2 days a week. What would be the chance that two people would actually meet each other in the office? Because on one hand, we want to have people in the office so that they can collaborate. On the other hand, we want people to have flexibility. So we need to know, can we reach both those goals, and how many days working from home would perhaps be best, or what is the maximum amount that they could work from home? So explaining this graph, if people would not work from home, or if the company wouldn't have a working remotely policy at all, so everyone is expected to come to the office, the chance of employee A and B meeting each other in the office is 88%. It's not 100% because some people may be on sick leave or annual leave, so that is over a year. The chance is about 88%. if you would then implement working from home days, let's say 2 working from home days on average, the chance that 2 people will meet each other in the office at the same day is only 29%. So that chance really decreases a lot. And then even more so when you would focus in on different teams. Oh, I think someone has unmuted. I don't want to listen to their conversation. Yeah, okay, muted now, because we don't want to hear any confidential information. That would be a shame. So I'm just gonna explain this graph, and I think it would be really nice to get into a conversation. So this graph shows you different teams sizes and the effect of working from home on the chance of people meeting each other in the office. So let's say you've got 10 employees, and then you would implement 1 day working from home. The chance that 50% of your team would be in the office at the same time is about 20%. So I think these type of insights we need to take, we'll need to think about when implementing flexible ways of working, and kind of discuss with the teams, like, okay, if this is the case, what effect does that have on your team outcomes, on your team cohesion? Yeah, and then this is just the overview. I think it's too much text on that, but those were the main highlights of the survey insights. I hope there was something of value in there, or something that you may have not heard before. Yeah, I'm curious to hear from you guys. Was there anything that you don't agree with, perhaps? Let me know. Jacqueline, over to you.
Okay, Tica, thank you very much. Both surveys were extremely thorough. They must have been like done on like some Survey Monkey or something software to get so much data. It was amazing. Yeah,
we are a large company, so I think that helped also. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Would you like me to stop sharing the screen?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it has any impact on.
I might.
If you can see more faces.
I might start off with a question.
Yeah.
So when you think about the future of work, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm already quite excited about the things that are happening now. So pre-COVID-19, as a workplace strategist, I often had to explain what I do and the value of having a strategy for how your people work, and what the impact is on space. But I think now a lot of businesses are actually thinking about, because of this working remote experience, we want to really rethink what is the best way of us going forward, and how much space do we need? Maybe we can get rid of some space. Maybe we want to have different types of space in our workplace. And I'm excited about that, because it makes for a more purposeful office place, rather than it just being, physical thing that you go to for work. It's actually people are thinking about, what am I gonna do there? What do I need? And it's more a human designed place of work. Yeah,
thanks, Tica.
Just having Can I jump in and ask a question?
Karen.
Yeah. Hey, sorry. Hi, sorry I was a bit late. I was at an event yesterday and a question from the audience came up with organizations going to kind of time in the office, time at home. What are the implications and the responsibilities with regards to work health and safety for clients whose staff are working at home?
That's a really good question. And it's funny because I've been working closely with our HSSEQ experts, whilst previously, his role would have really been internally focused on Cushman and Wakefield's health and safety. But now every time I find myself asking him questions about our clients because it's so important. And again, what are the obligations? Like, I can't talk to any legal terms here, but some of the things that I see that our clients are dealing with and perhaps struggling with is, for example, do we need to provide a budget when people want to work from home to set up, screens? And some companies have done, and therefore employees, or we expect our company to also do it, but not all companies are in the same position to actually have that expense, so to say. Other things that we are seeing now is with government saying you can have everyone back in the workplace. Should we get rid of our checkerboard seating? Should we have client events again? So one of our clients, they are a young bunch, and previously they would have a lot of events and come together and have a drink on a Friday. So now the question is, should we even reintroduce alcohol into our workplace? Because alcohol would would bring people together, and that may actually enforce contact, or people not thinking about the 1.5 meter distancing because it's a social event. I think it's a very important area, but a lot of grace in there. And perhaps as a solution, I think the decision-making process of why the company is doing certain things. So let's say if the decision is to keep the checkerboard seating, explain to the employees what the thought process was. So what are the potential risks that we are dealing with, and what are the potential benefits, and why are the benefits or the risks, why are they weighing higher or lower? So that they feel informed, and you will have it's a whole big change management exercise, right? So you need to bring them on the journey there. Thank you for your question, Karen.
I've got one more actually, because I couldn't answer it myself, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
It came up from one of the audience, because we did have an in-person event here in Canberra, I guess, in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah,
but
great.
How to use Zoom and other platforms if people are remote working to drive that Friday night drinks if they're not in the office. So if you're not getting the team together, what are the strategies or successes or insights you have around how to use those platforms to create that kind of connection and culture?
Yeah. Zoom, it's a funny one because you will see that not all people are actually excited to then hop on a Zoom on a Friday night. So you will really need to have some incentives for people to be involved in the conversation. So I would suggest this should be some either fun prep work or something that will be discussed that is gonna be interesting. So if it is just gonna be a chat and we'll see what happens, there is nothing really that would draw people to that event. I know you can do some fun things with it's let's say we all wear something red, or will we perhaps what you even could do, and this is something you could also come up with the team, some of the fun activities, but every week someone else will lead the discussion, and perhaps it is a 20-minute fun exercise, and then it's a 20-minute discussion, and the 20-minute fun exercise will be created by the particular employee. So let's say you've got 10 people in the team. So for 10 weeks, you've got the schedule. People know when their thingy comes up. You may have someone that is interested in yoga and says, well, for those 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through my favorite yoga routine. maybe someone else is interested in motorcycles and is going to talk for 20 minutes about some of his or her passions. Can be whatever, but I think that would, something like that would make people a little bit more excited. Does that help? Yeah, okay.
That's great, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Karen. Are there any more questions?
I'm curious to know, like, if there was anything in the presentation that you're like, nah, I don't think that's the case, or I think it's slightly different, or some of the survey respondents that may not have resonated with what you're seeing.
I think just from my own viewpoint, I didn't see anything that I thought that wouldn't be right, but it was quite interesting. One of your studies, was that taken across 100 countries, or?
Yes, the 60,000. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so we only really sort of know the Australian experience, so it was interesting to see what it all looked like averaged out across 100 countries.
Oh yeah, so oops, where are we? This overview, are you relating to?
Well, I can't see it.
Oh, of course, I haven't shared my screen.
Let's have it.
I still
look.
thought I was sharing my screen. I'm just gonna share it very quickly.
And I suppose many of those countries would be still very much working from home.
Yeah. So this, have I shared it now? Can you see it?
Yes. Yeah.
This overview indeed shows all the averages, or the average across 100 countries, and this the other overview as well. I do have the Australian results somewhere. Oops.
Okay.
Maybe I can. How much time do we have?
While
maybe
you're doing
I can
that,
look that up. Yeah.
Can I just make one observation on
Yeah.
that one? I think that the thing that we've been finding is when we're engaging with, say, tenant reps or leasing agents, they're all of a certain demographic. And they're really concerned often about the fact that people are going to shift all of their workplace remotely when they're not going to be able to lease buildings in CBD anymore. And I think that's what's characteristic of that. And I think your slide there illustrates it, is that there's this understanding of people of an aged, of a certain age like me, where you're sort of plus 40 and you may have a home and you can work from home, that looking at a younger demographic, millennials, for example, they're very tech advanced, and that there's a leap made by people of my demographic that would say, well, the younger people, because they're so tech advanced, they can actually work from home really easily. But in fact, they find it significantly challenging. And it's a piece that I don't think we're talking enough about supporting the whole sort of range of people to provide an environment where they can work efficiently in. I think we often sort of forget about the fact that not everybody has an appropriate place to work outside of the office. And then I guess the other thing is that we talked about, obviously, in mentorship, is there a risk? Are we looking at the risk to our responsibility as employers to actually cite people and see that they are okay, not just on a day-to-day basis in terms of they alive or not, but is their wellbeing okay? How do we factor that? And you asked organizations how they factor that kind of responsibility to client, to staff wellbeing into their workplace environments.
Yeah, really good observations. And indeed, with the younger generation, like companies like EY, for example, a lot of people want to work there because of the access to partners. And partners are often busy. So I can imagine that when they work remotely, the younger people don't feel like they can access them at all, and are missing out. And it is a responsibility, I would say, of the employer to have learning pathways and to make sure that their new starters are up to scratch with the processes and the protocols, and even the way they behave is in line with corporate standards or culture. And then your point about well-being and what is the responsibility of employers when people are working remotely, and how do we actually know how they are feeling? I've seen some technologies coming up, and I don't quite agree 100% by using technology to get insights into how your people are. But I think it's just as an observation, there are these apps that people will get like a question once or twice a week. They fill that out, and based on that, they get the exercises to do, or they will be put in a certain basket, and maybe breathing exercise will work for you. And I think this may be low-hanging fruit, or maybe an easy way to get out of it. I think it's really important that managers again understand how their teams are doing, and having regular contact with them, and really the human skills and emotional intelligence, I believe, is going to be important, and we need to skill up people to do that, and perhaps even set those coffee or random coffee chats for people within the team to have one-on-one coffee chats with the random people within the team every single week for maybe 15 minutes, and not talk about work, but talk about personal things, to have those touch points with not only your manager, but also your peers.
Yeah, I spoke to someone recently who said that a director in the company that she worked for, not the same one, but a director called her each week. I found that really impressive. That seemed like a really great way to make sure that your employees are okay to actually personally have a list of employees that you would randomly be assigned to call each week.
Yeah, beautiful. That's good. Yeah. Has anyone else heard of like interesting strategies to keep in contact? No.
I did hear a slightly different kind of perspective yesterday. If we thought about the remote working being the first form of work, and then you see the workplace as the secondary one, we would then focus slightly differently. At the moment, we're talking about, okay, the office is the primary thing, and then the remote working is the unusual activity. But what if we thought the remote activity was the now standard, and what were we redoing about the office to try and reimagine it, rather than trying to just change something that's been what it was for so long? Thought it was quite an interesting way of turning it around.
Yeah, I think you joined a little later. Was that right? Because I showed one slide that related to that. Maybe I will quickly share it with you so you can see.
That would be great. So sorry.
No, that's totally fine. And I think it's a good one to point out. And I thought, I may as well just share it with you. Can you see my screen? Yeah. So this is I think what you were talking about. So the office first point of view versus remote first. And then these are the hybrid ways of looking at a workplace. And pre-COVID-19, a lot was office first, whilst post-COVID, a lot is hybrid focused. But interestingly, remote first was 12% pre-COVID, and it has decreased a little bit by 10%. So that's actually, yeah, maybe it is because 5 days working from home is perhaps not the best for everyone's well-being, and even loneliness. There was a new report has come out from NAB. They've looked into the effects of remote working. Really interesting results in that report. I don't know if it's publicly available yet, but if it is, I would definitely recommend looking up their insights. And it's all Australian based. Okay.
Thanks, Tica. Are there any more questions?
I just have a question. Oh, sorry.
Right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think as someone who was working on I think the regional variance within Australia is quite interesting because each state had a very different, I guess, response. And, I'm based in Melbourne, so we probably went through a much longer working from home phase than compared to, I was working on an office building in Canberra throughout the middle of lockdown. It was quite interesting to see everyone was working from home here, but a lot of, speaking to people in Canberra, they were full steam ahead with traditional approaches to offices. But did you I don't know what, how regionally based the the research was, but you started to see regional variances within Australia, particularly because we've had quite a controlled approach, except for Melbourne, I guess, compared to the rest of the world. But I think it'd be interesting to see from a city by city basis, because working with clients in Brisbane, they did a little stint of working from home, but they were pretty much mainly in the office for a majority of the time. So it was quite interesting, going into Zoom meetings and seeing the different, within Australia, I thought it was quite fascinating. And it'll be interesting to see how those cities tailor their responses on a more regional level.
I totally agree with you. It's absolutely fascinating to see those differences within one country. The data that we have and the pool of 60,000, I've been asking for our team our research team to slice it by state in Australia, but because it was a global survey, they can't, because I guess you understand why. So it's a pity we can't look into that based on our own data. But my own experience, clients in Sydney versus clients in Melbourne, it's such a big difference. And in Sydney, I feel like they're kind of living in the future, right? And because they have had the experience of working from home and are now going back, so it's slightly different than Canberra perhaps or Brisbane, because they haven't had that working from home. So in Sydney, people were reluctant at first to come back to the office, but that is slightly changing. First, people said it was because of safety concerns. There are there are minor safety concerns in Sydney now. As people are commuting again, buses are full, people are sitting next to each other in the bus without a mask. But it's really around people don't want to come back. And how do you get people back? And I think across the board, we've seen that the usual Sunday blues or Sunday stress at night, when you start thinking about the week ahead, your stress levels can go up. But now that a lot of us can work from home on the Monday, that Sunday stress level has decreased, which I thought was it's kind of a good thing. But to your question, I'm sorry, I don't have the state-by-state survey-based insights.
Riley, it's Michaela from Hassel, and we actually did do a state-by-state research project about this. We had about 800 Australians, office workers surveyed, and there was a difference between Victoria and the rest of the country in attitudes about returning to work. So that survey was done at the end of last year, and it was so that was when Victoria was emerging, but had not really, come back fully. We're nearly there now, so it's taken a long time to get back to where we're still not even back to where we were. But so there was a marked difference between Victoria and the other states. But I do wonder, the difference between New South Wales and Victoria, I think, was not as stark as Victoria to the rest of the country. And I think some of that may be related to the types of workplaces that you find in Victoria and New South Wales compared to the rest of the country. So there's a lot of headquarters in Victoria and New South Wales, and I suspect that the type of work that gets done in Victoria and New South Wales is more easily done remotely than perhaps some of the other workplaces in other states. So we didn't actually explore that issue. That's just something that I've been theorising about. But yes, there definitely was a difference between states.
Very interesting. I'm curious to know if you know, because you're saying the headquarters, so maybe the global policies of some of those companies would also have an effect on how flexible people work. Because speaking from, you know, Cushman and Wakefield, most of our policies come from Global, which is in New York, and they are of course not doing very well. So when it comes to us opening up the workplace, we still need to have our checkerboard seating, even though the government here, you know, we can open up 100%, but we can't because of our internal or global direction.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Would love to see your research, Michaela.
Yes, it's not my research. I can't claim it. Our workplace researcher, Daniel Davis, who is actually in New York, but this was a survey about Australian workers. There is a paper coming out shortly on that. Awesome. But we're also running now a second round of that research, but we're going global. So we're doing it in 4 different regions. And so we'll be able to compare the regions to the Australian experience from you know, 4 or 5 months ago.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out.
That.
Yeah, keep an eye out.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions or comments? Just before everyone arrived, I was talking to Tica and Tava arrived. I'll just see if you're still here, Tava. No, anyway, we were kind of talking about how do young people get such amazing titles. Oh, you are there, Tava. Hello. And I do find your role and your title quite fascinating. You're a human geographer as well as a workplace strategist. But I haven't actually met anyone that's a human geographer before. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I studied human geography in the Netherlands at the University of Utrecht, and human geography is the study of human behavior in time and place. And you can, for example, apply that to a large scale, so looking at immigration patterns, or you can zoom into more like a city-based level and look at the rise of the smart or the it's called the rise of the smart or the creative community. But what I'm doing, I'm actually really focusing into the micro level, which is workplace. So how do people behave in the workplace, and how can we make sure that the surrounding enables them to work well? And with the whole work from home experience, I think it's just so fascinating to map out people's patterns and their journeys, how they go through their days, moving from place to place in time, utilizing different spaces and connecting face to face, virtually, and analyzing that, and then coming up with the best ways forward and strategizing.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, we might say thank you very much to Tica. Thank you for coming today. Well, Michaela has just shared something.
Oh, good.
Michaela, is that the research you were talking about?
Yes. It's just
thank you.
A quick summary of it, because I'm not quite sure how much detail will be in the paper. So that gives you a quick overview of it.
Right.
That's awesome. I might just take a copy of that. So if anyone doesn't get that link, let me know and I'll give it to you. And also, did you say you would mind sharing this with us, Tica? Yeah. So if anyone would like a copy of this presentation, please let me know and I'll send it around. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Tica, for speaking today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your brilliant questions and observations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tica.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.